we're just gonna flow.
Let's do it. Flow with Joe. Oh, but I made you something.
You did.
So I got into stamping jewelry. Isn't that fun? You just have to find a necklace to put it on.
It's cute.
I started doing Smile. I was just, this is like, yeah, you can see like all the times I like tried it. It was so hard.
So cute, Lala.
But anyways, I gotta get this brand out. So anyways, but I was just like practicing. I was like, oh, I want to make one for Jeff.
And 2 exclamation points.
Well,
It's
yeah.
so fitting.
Because it's you.
Hi, you guys.
Hello.
Guess who's back? Back again.
It's true.
You guys, we have my friend Lala, or you might know her as Chelsea. I know a lot of my followers on Instagram listened to our first podcast and started following you. So I'm so happy to have you back. Like, I literally think you were my first episode.
I think so.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
crazy.
So crazy.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Wild.
So wild.
So, I'm so excited to get into this episode because every time me and Lala get together, this specific topic that we're talking about today, we always get so fired up on it.
Oh, yeah.
And you have just received so many downloads and updates that I'm so excited for you to, like, spread to the world. Like, this is stuff, this is juice that we are craving right now on the planet. So, let's get into it.
Yeah. Deep breath.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, what do people need to hear necessarily? And just, like for me, I'm, praying about it. Like, okay, let this be inspired. Like, what is kind of just like fueling me? Like, what's keeping me going? And I just felt myself getting stuck in this, not even a rut, but I felt myself constantly grabbing. There we go. It's been a while. Grabbing my phone and like this constant need to have like something streaming through, like, I don't know, being
some kind of stimulation through your phone, whether it's a podcast or Instagram or something.
Just like constantly being fed information. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's not that like what we need to stop hearing about. It's like what we need to stop hearing. We need to stop. Like, we just need to stop for a second and listen to ourselves instead of listening to all these other things. And that's great. I think you should be listening to a good podcast and keeping up with important information. But yet you have to limit yourself. Otherwise you can get totally consumed in it. And I think that's kind of the theme of where we're going, is that's the whole, I stopped and I started writing in my journal. I have like 5 pages that I just kind of went, because we're requiring this space for love, the space for connecting with yourself and connecting with your divine identity. What are you doing? And so when you feel this gap between, like, I just feel funny, I need this constant need to, like, I want to be doing something, I want to be productive. If I have time on my hands, I want to be productive. And so I'm like, I want to listen, I need to listen to this or watch this YouTube video while I'm doing this, and I wind up getting like so many things like going at the same time. I'm not stopping to really recognize, okay, how is this helping me get to my my end goal? So it's just kind of like keeping my mind busy. And for us, we already have busy minds, and so when we're just like constantly feeding it all the time, I get into a state of overwhelm and I have to like take a step back.
Well, and if you don't take a step back, are you distracting yourself from doing the emotional work of being a progressive human? Because the problem is on the planet is you have the yin and you have the yang, and you have a little bit of the yang and the yin, and you have a little bit of yin and the yang. And so what's happening on the planet is we are so much in the yang energy. And the yang energy is consuming, doing, action. Like, we are losing balance on the planet because we don't have enough yin, we don't have enough relaxation, we don't have enough silence, we don't have enough time to really absorb information, because it's just like, on to the next. So we're not really actually absorbing. And until you're in the yin energy of just like being outside in a hammock and just in silence, then how can you get downloads from source? How can you get downloads from God? How can you even listen to yourself?
That's it. That's exactly it. And so as I literally sat down to think about some things we could talk about, that's what hit me. I was like, exactly what I'm doing right now is like key. You have to recognize when to stop, because I think about like growing up, like before, we had cell phones, right? We weren't constantly stimulated. It was like we had silence, we had space. And I think that is so important to protect that space, because we're all given a few things of the same, and that is we're all given the same amount of time. We're given the ability to choose, and so those two things we get to navigate how we spend our time and what we choose to do with that time and everything else. And so I think it's almost being chosen for us, because when we're on our phones all the time, or we feel this constant need to be stimulated, it's kind of we get into that addictive mode, and our mind doesn't feel comfortable unless it's being stimulated. And
it's such a facade. It's a facade of thinking you're being productive by listening and consuming and reading and distracting. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is to do nothing.
Yes, I agree.
For your cells to calm down, for your fight or flight mode to calm down. It's good for you physically, mentally, and spiritually to just be.
Yeah.
When you're like a little kid in your room and you're just like hanging upside down on your bed, looking at your ceiling, just breathing.
Yeah.
Or just like looking up at the clouds and just like, are we ever actually being these days?
Not a lot.
Hardly ever.
Right.
Because we need to be productive.
Yeah.
But I think that's an old program that we need to burn.
100%.
Because it's crap.
It's total crap.
And the problem with being always going to Instagram and always looking at these things is, like we were saying earlier, is our phones and the people and the makers behind the Apple products and everything, they want our money. They want us to buy their products constantly. And to see everyone and scrolling down, you could be doing that all day. Oh, that's a cute outfit. I'm going to click this ad, and the next thing you know, the day's halfway over. You've spent your money. Did you really need that? And are you neglecting your emotions? Are you neglecting these deeper things that need your attention?
Right.
It's a distraction that's not for the better. It's a distraction that's... Our phones are an easy tool, and technology is an easy tool for satanic influence to control us and to manipulate us and consume. That's such a material surface way of being as a human on this planet. We are craving depth. We are craving spirituality. We are craving emotion. We are craving healing.
Right.
How can you do that if you are constantly on your damn phone looking at this artificial, materialistic, temporary thing, and then you buy this thing and you're stoked about it for 5 minutes, and then I need the next thing. We're literally like little drug addicts.
Oh, it's bad, and it's legit. Like the people behind, just even the structure of Instagram. Like I was saying, I watched the Social Dilemma.
Yes.
Okay, if you haven't watched that on Netflix, shameless plug for the Social Dilemma here. I was blown away because I thought I knew. I was like, I know it's bad. People are addicted, this and that. But they've literally designed certain things like the scroll down refresh bar. That's the same mechanism and same psychology of a slot machine. And so they are literally channeling into human psychology and using that against us in a way. And you know what? Like technology has its benefits. We all know that. But we need to take control of how much we're consuming. Because there's several times I've jumped on Instagram with no intent of buying anything, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I just ordered this new face wash or something.
And it's so easy because it has your credit card number.
Yeah,
they're making everything so easy. A click of a button and it's at your door.
Yeah, because you don't see it. You're not handing out cash.
Yes.
Like the old days. You know? It's just it's wild. And so I think it's they talked all about these different algorithms, and it follows what you do, and it just creeped me out. I was like, okay, I don't even want to support this anymore. But, it is up to us and our agency to choose what we want to do with it. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to support what's going on. So I think we need to change our algorithm in our brains and how we're thinking about it. And so it got me thinking of okay, well, yeah, what's going on inside of that beautiful head of yours? You know, does it need a hug? Does it need, you know, do you need to physically communicate with someone else? Do you need to go out for a walk? And so it really got me thinking about how we can break these things down. And I'm like, okay, I've been stuck in that mode. We know better, and we just kind of get like sucked back into it a little bit. So it's like, okay, what sort of things can we really lay out to like how we get back to our own inspiration, how we create space in our mind for thoughts. And I know, you know, at times it was like I wanted to numb my brain because I didn't like what was going on in my own reality because I was so far away from where I wanted to be. But then the time that I spent working on it, like, you kind of get this satisfaction of like kind of like achieving those small daily goals, those little successes, and keeping track of those little daily successes and what I was doing with my day gave me that same dopamine rush as, you know, the Instagram likes and everything else, right?
In a more progressive way.
Yes.
And it's building confidence for yourself.
Exactly. And so you are bridging that gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And the more you waste your time, it's because it's like your inner self is when you feel that like frustration and that resistance or kind of like that unease, it's because you're like, your spirit's trying to tell you something. You know, it's like, okay, this doesn't agree, or this isn't good. And so it's like going with your gut on things and kind of tapping back in. But it's like building muscles. You have to practice tapping in.
Yes. And your soul and God and intuition and spirit is wanting to talk to you
all the time.
But it's like, put down the dang freaking Amazon package in your phone.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like the problem is mental illness.
Yeah.
And as above, so below. So if you're mentally not feeling good, it's going to react within your physical body. Your cells are going to react to that, and it's creating inflammation and illness. So on so many levels, anxiety and depression are so high, and then the pharmaceuticals, popping a pill, and then your kidneys and your liver is going on overdrive, and it's creating more illness. It's just this like never-ending cycle of bullshit, really.
Yeah.
So the problem is like, until you achieve a mindful balance of being mindful of why are you on this app? What are you consuming? Is it bringing you joy? And you start to be a mindful creator and creating your own life with the people that are in your life, with the apps that you are choosing to look at, with the foods you are choosing to eat, with the way you move your body, with the people you interact with the job that you choose. Like, until you become mindful, you're going to be on autopilot of this never-ending thing of getting nowhere, like a dog chasing its tail, and then you're in a rut. You're in a deep rut, and it's harder to get out. So it's like being, one, aware, but then two, having the discipline to just create good, healthy habits with this tool, because it's always a double-edged sword. Like, yes, technology is a great tool for Satan, but it's also a great tool for God too. But which side are you choosing?
Exactly. And sometimes, you're not consciously aware of what you're choosing either, and you're like, oh, it's not bad, I'm just, you know, connecting with my friends or looking at what my friends are doing. But at the same time, it's like, for me, I had to step away. I had to jump into my journal. I had to write down what I wanted, and I still do this to this day. And it's just like, how do I want to feel spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, and socially? Like, what am I actually doing? And so I've had this topic of taking an inventory of your life, because, you know, we do it with budget, we do it with you know, all of these things. Like, when you take an inventory of what is going on in your head, maybe you don't like what's going on in your head, so you're choosing to kind of like avoid that by stuffing and cramming new things in your head, by like trying to escaping. And I've been there, you know, and I've been that route of, you know, just get a pill here, this is going to help you feel better. But deep down, I knew that I needed to step in and do the work. It takes work to be happy.
Yes. And it's like, pick your poison, you guys. Pick the poison of chasing your tail and getting nowhere in that comfort, or pick the poison of temporary, you know, paving a new path and the unknown, and having more discipline of saying no. But in the long run, you are on the road to achieving core happiness, true happiness. Like, you're on the road to achieving your and finding your essence of who you are.
Right, exactly.
And finding your purpose and finding true fulfillment on the planet, whether instead of trying to find fulfillment within a material item.
Yeah, and your goals have to come from that place. And there will be no easy or convenient time to make the change, but that's like just it. True alignment won't come in a pretty package with a big bow on it. Like, it will never come at a more convenient time than right now.
I love that.
That's seriously, like, so it's not a timing thing. It's about an alignment thing. Are you aligned with, are the choices that you're making every single day aligned with that end goal? And if the answer is no, get rid of it. And so
say that again.
Okay.
What should they ask themselves?
Okay, so if you're going through, so say, let's just start with social media. If you're on social media and you're like, okay, I want to get rid of over 500 followers that I don't even know, or people that I'm following, right? It's like, how in the world did this even happen? And you start kind of getting rid of things, and it's like, is the things that these people are about, is it helping me reach my goal of happiness? Do I align with that? Yes or no? Unfollow or whatever. Or it's like, hey, you know what? I don't feel the best when I eat these foods, or maybe I should stop eating out. I recognize that when I eat this, it makes me feel sick. Okay, I want to feel better. Canceled,
Mm-hmm.
like get rid of it. And so, and even people, I think it's really tough, because sometimes even your own family can not necessarily align with your end goals, or maybe they don't agree with some of the things that you want to do, but learning how to also create those boundaries, because those aren't people you want to you don't necessarily want to like nix them out of your life in certain scenarios, but you need to make those boundaries and not really care. Because I always cared a lot what other people thought of my goals and what I wanted to do, because I kind of got that validation. But I needed to learn that the only validation I needed was from God, and was from my soul and my gut. And when it felt at peace, I knew that was validated. And so I went through the things in my spiritual life. I went through the things in my mental, emotional life. I went through the things that I was doing physically and financially and socially. These are the 5 categories that I really like stick to, because it's, I guess, kind of simple. You can dive deeper, but where did I want to be and how did I want to feel in each of those situations? And I'll write them out like each year, kind of like as a goal setting. And it's amazing how even when I'm not paying attention, just setting that intention and writing it down, things start to flow. And so if you're in a rut financially and you want to be somewhere else, you really have to dive in and take that time to, because it's not going to come right away, but you have to first acknowledge it, and then align yourself with the people, places, and things that are going to help you get there. And it's you have to get rid of the old to let the new in.
Amen, sister. And once you solidify and are aware of what you want, and then you write it down on paper, then not only are you starting to become on the path of like making it happen, but God starts to be like,
yeah,
she's become aware of what she wants, and that's what I've been wanting her
she's
to
listening.
do. God wants us to be aware and mindful, because that is how you achieve a God state.
Right.
That's what monks are out there doing, being aware and conscious. And so God's like, she's aware of what she wants.
Yeah.
She's asking specifically what she wants. Boom!
Yeah.
Cool. I want to give it to her.
Right. It's amazing. And like I talked about this the first time I was on, but even getting to Hawaii, like, it was wild. Like, how many things I had to go through, but it's like, I knew that's where God needed me to be, because I had undeniable experiences of God telling me I needed to be there. And that was unique, but everything laid out. I still had to do a ton of work. I still had to deal with the naysayers. I still had to kind of navigate like this old life I was living in, but that new like world that was coming, that was like real. Like when I found out I got into school and all these things, it just, everything fell into place, but it still wasn't easy. I had to keep my emotions in check. I had to keep everything still like in alignment, because doubt will come. It will be there to oppose whatever you're trying to do, and you just have to recognize it and just say, okay, like I acknowledge you, doubt, but it's time to leave, because this is happening and I'm moving forward.
Well, and that experience was probably one of the bigger experiences that taught you what it means to trust yourself,
100%.
trust your intuition, and go confidently in that direction. And now, for the next situation where it takes that person, like that energy from you, you're like, I've already done this before.
Exactly.
Like, you're just more confident with yourself and with God and, like, with your life. Like, you can now take control, and you don't have to listen to the naysayers, because you have now reprogrammed yourself to just have that faith, trust, muscle.
Yeah.
You're strengthening that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
Exactly. And you don't need that approval. And I think it starts small. Like, I think it starts with just stopping and slowing down and recognizing some things that are good in your life, whether that's through a gratitude practice, which is super awesome, which helped me a ton, but just kind of acknowledging the space that you're in first. I think that acknowledgement kind of opens up this like vortex for God to potentially put something in your path, and he'll start small, and when you don't follow those feelings and promptings per se that he's giving you, he's not going to keep telling you to do something that you're not going to do. Yeah. I feel like he's like, okay, I'm only going to tell you so many times to do this. You asked for my help. Now it's your job. You've been on your knees praying. Now get up and go to work. Go do it, know? And I think, a lot of the times it's like we picture prayer one way. We picture, it's just like, not all of us get lightning bolts of downloads. Like, on occasion, yeah, like when we really need it, and when we're kind of like we've earned God's trust to be able to receive that much. But it starts small. It starts with little feelings, and if it's a good feeling, it's from God, and it comes in these small packages, and then maybe it'll get a little bit bigger, where you'll hear different things, or you'll see things differently, and then you're starting to learn like those ways that God communicates with you, because it's probably different for you than it is for me, and he knows that, because we're his children, and it's just like, so we need to just be open that channel. So I think the first thing you can do is just stop and listen, and just desire. I think you just have to have a desire to start receiving something and acknowledging, I'm putting this other stuff away, I want to move on, I want something different and bigger.
That leads me to kind of a big topic, but I think a lot of people are scared to ask for what they want, because they're scared to actually receive it, and they're scared to see that power in their life.
That's
like,
real.
Don't you think it's a real thing to like I'm building this gym here, and this has been my dream since I was 12.
Yeah. And
the closer that I get, the more I'm like scared.
Yes.
And I'm like it almost takes my breath away of like, holy crap. Literally, God is so powerful, and we are so powerful. We can literally have whatever we desire, but that's scary.
Yeah. Because
we've been programmed to think small, to play small.
Yeah.
But that's the devil, dude.
No, it's for real, and it kind of comes in like there is going to be this opposition, like so many just different accounts throughout history. There's always something crazy that happens before something good happens, or even right after. Like, there's just going to be this this opposition, this dance, and so whether you're religious or not, like, it's just kind of some of the laws of the universe that happen. It's just what goes up must come down. Like, it's science for the most part, and I think that I kind of had this concept of, like, in my head, like when I was like a little kid and people are playing jump rope, like double dutch or something, I was always afraid to like jump in right away, right? And I was just kind of like hesitant, like my head going like, oh, I'm gonna do it, oh, I'm not, and it's just kind of like I've had the same experiences with these things I want to create and explore with. Kind of, I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to find my purpose, and God's like, no, I already told you what you need to do. Like, you just gotta jump in, with both feet and do jump rope, you know? And you're gonna trip up. How many times it's like, oh, I messed up, but you step back out and you jump back in, and you just keep doing that. And I think we're gonna get knocked down, and that's just what makes us stronger. I think you posted something the other day, and it was like this guy walking through this crazy like course of fire and nails and whatever, and like the guy chilling on the side. The one guy that went through the trouble comes out all like ripped, and then the other guy is just like measly like walking by, and I was like, yes, that's it,
Well, and when you're in alignment with your purpose and you have some kind of stoked fire for it, it's fine if you like fall on your face.
Yeah, who cares?
Because you're stoked about it, because it's in alignment.
Right.
You're like eager to get back up, because it's not like you're in a 9 to 5 that's like, oh, I have to get back up. I freaking don't want a negative vibration. It's like, no, you have found alignment, so you're quicker to get back up, and you're more eager to, because you found your alignment, you found your purpose, and that's what we all want, right?
Yeah. And you just get in your zone. And like, for me, it's always, my life was track and field for so long, and one thing I loved about like teaching my athletes was like, look, all you can control is what is in your lane. Like, nobody, some of the races, they merge lanes and stuff, but for the most part, you've got your hurdles, your lanes, like, nobody else can jump your hurdles for you. You only have this, this much. The finish line is there, it's there, and you have to do it. But you can't worry about what everyone else is doing, because you're going to lose focus on your race. And so once you get in the zone, for, say you've gotten into alignment, you know what you're doing, and you're kind of coming down this path, you get so in the zone to where you don't care. Like, we don't care what other people think about us and
it's
what
none of our
we're
business.
Doing. Exactly. And once people learn, I think we've been trained through social media to like really care what other people are doing.
Well, and I'm even going to say, even in the schooling system and in religions.
Yeah.
Like, I care what you're doing, but it's like, that's just kind of a programming thing.
Yeah.
So it's like the Taoists believe, focus on your vortex,
right,
and let everything else just flow and be in their flow.
Yeah, and then we're all gonna flow together, and it's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be fine, because you're not in control of anybody else's life.
I love that point. That's a great point, because once you just focus on what you can control, and not getting ahead in your mind of like, what if this happens? What if this? Take it as it comes until it's in front of you and you can actually do something about it. Like, just stay focused on what you can control, and when it comes, deal with it. But until then, just be in the present, working on what makes you feel good, whether it's being in the yin energy and not doing a dang thing, or being in the yang and networking and calling people up and getting out of your comfort zone and going to this place, or like whatever that looks like.
Yeah, it's true. I still have meltdowns all the time.
Yeah. Like,
all the time. And now, like, luckily I have a husband to, like, calm me down, and Jake is so good about this. He'll just, like, take me and, like, hold my face. It's gonna be okay. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm, like, still having a meltdown. He's like, no, like, you have to believe me. It's gonna be okay. And then I'm like, okay, he just knows I just need a hug or something, right?
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes, find that person that's gonna give you that hug. Find that person that you can confide in. I was single for, till I was 30, and I had to find, I wasn't getting it from my parents. I wasn't getting it from a lot of my friends. They thought I was crazy for the things I wanted to do. But then I met people like you, like that I could trust, and that's where all these people started coming into my life. I started attracting all of these amazing things, and look where we are now. Like, it's crazy. 2+ years later. And, we're living these dreams that we talked about on the beach in Hawaii,
It's so cool. It's so cool. Ask and you shall receive, but in order to receive, you do have to let go of old ways. So, sacrifice. Okay, so you wrote down like 5 pages.
Oh my gosh.
You were going ham with these downloads.
And it's crazy, because when this happens, I'm like, was that me? Like, I wrote that down, and so there's a couple points here that maybe I'll jump into, because this was really, really fun. So this thing called happiness, that we're all seeking for here, and I feel that we're here, we're designed to operate the best in a state of joy. We are here to find joy and happiness. We have the opposite of that. There is sorrow and sadness and crazy things that go on. But happiness isn't going to come in this fluffy unicorn that's going to come hopping by our doorstep. And so I think it's the mind, it's the outlook that we have. We have to kind of sometimes almost create this little world, and for a while I lived in this world in my head because it wasn't my reality yet, and I was just thinking about all the things that I wanted, and so I think that's where LALA came from. I was just in LALA land all the time, and that's really the space that I had to go to when things weren't the best in my physical reality, and so I wrote down the things that I wanted to do. But I also learned that happiness is a daily, ongoing choice that you have to make. And happiness, sometimes it's not it's not all like fluffy. I think, you know, there's the power of positivity, all these different things, but it still takes action. You're still going to have the emotions of being sad, fearful, angry, and that's okay. That we're designed to have those emotions, and I think those are the things that kind of make us take a step back and draw us even closer to stepping back into alignment for where we want to go.
Well, and to backtrack to a great point that you said earlier, is you said that it's a universal law for contrast to always be present.
Yeah.
And as strong, the pendulum will swing super happy, but it'll swing just as far into the other, you know, opposite emotion of sad or anger or frustration or whatever, but it's just kind of a constant swing. And once you stop having the expectation of happiness must always look like flowers and roses and unicorns, once you let that false expectation go, you will be way more solid and rooted with the pendulum swings, because you understand, well, energy is always moving. So it's not like I will be in this negative energy forever, because it's inevitable. It's science that it will swing to the happy and the joyful vibration as well.
Right.
So I think it's a big key to let go of the expectation of sunny days are going to be constant.
Yes. And then also, happiness is separate from like the good days and the bad days in a sense, because those days will always come and go. Happiness is more so like the state of mind that you put yourself in during these bad days.
Right.
Right? And so if we have, you know, if we keep, you know, smiling through these good and bad days, and that, you know, became my mantra. It came from a scripture that said to be carnally minded is death, and to be spiritually minded is life eternal. And the acronym was SMILE. And so that was something I felt was written like perfectly for me, because I was studying all this like gratitude and positivity and everything else. And then we've talked about how that relates to traditional Chinese medicine in that fire element, but it's joy, it's that mindset, it's the outlook that we have. You know, when we smile through the hard times and those things, it's like that happiness mindset. When we have that gratitude mindset, everything that will help you get through those tough times. So those are definitely going to come. Those are going to be there. But it's just kind of like, okay, so how do we reach that state? And so, like I said, my philosophy came from this scripture, and I started, you know, diving into the science of positive psychology and all these different things. And so it was like, okay, like it's inside of our minds. Like there's nothing to tangibly have besides a spiritual mind that will bring you to all that you ever wanted. Like you really have to start inside your brain first. And so taking a step back, when we're constantly consuming all of these things in our brain, we're keeping our brain busy. We're not allowing our brain to have that time and space to like think and appreciate. And because I mean, we really can only do one thing at once. As much as we like to think that we can multitask, your brain is going to be focused on one thing. And so when you really like dive into it, and for me it was kind of recognizing my true identity. And for me, I believe that I'm a child of God. I believe, you know, there's all these things that I've been taught since I was little. But then it really became when I started aligning with that true identity and believing in it, that like if I truly believe that I'm a literal like daughter of God, I have like his DNA within me, like what can't I do? You know, like this is crazy. I've got his spiritual DNA running through my veins, and so it's like these universal laws. Like whether you're reading the Bible, you're reading self-help books, they're all going to teach these same things. And so your alignment, your thoughts, your words, your actions, like everything has to line up with your end goal. Otherwise, you're gonna get this resistance that's gonna hold you and like start taking you backwards. But you have to surrender to the fact that there is a lot that's out of your control in that. And so you control your daily choices. You do as much as you can. At the end of the day, that's where I believe God makes up for the rest that's just completely out of our hands.
And I don't even think it's that you start to go backwards, but you start to stagnate. And stagnation is hell.
Uh-huh.
And then that's when God's like, okay, you gotta freaking get out of this rut, or else I'm gonna freaking make you.
Right.
I'm gonna make some storms come.
Yeah.
To get your ass to freaking move, you stubborn little child of mine.
Yeah. really, and that's and that's how it is. And like I said, those bad, we call them like bad days or whatever. But sometimes, when you choose to see hard times as a blessing, that's what was a game changer for me. And that kind of leads me to this next section of talking about gratitude, because I really do believe understanding your true identity and your purpose and gratitude are ultimately tied together. Because once you understand that, like, where everything comes from and it's outside of yourself, and you hit that rock bottom and you go without these things, or you're going through these really hard times, and when they're good, they are so good. You appreciate them so much more. And when things do get hard, you're like holding on to the fact that, okay, I know things were once good and they're going to get good again. I just have to keep this mindset, keep doing the steps, and get through that. And so I really believe the two are inseparable. So gratitude, having a grateful mind, most often comes when there is that contrast. So you're more grateful to recognize the sunshine when there's been constant storms forever.
Yeah.
And so I think that's almost God's way of allowing us to recognize Him in all things, and thus being spiritually minded.
Oh, it's so beautiful. You're so beautiful.
Oh,
it's so true.
This is the thing that God told me the other night when I sat down and I gave Him that time to allow, like, I sat down, and I'm not going to lie, like, this is why it's so heavy on my mind right now, because I wasn't doing this, and I felt numb. Did you feel anxious too? 100%.
Because it's wanting to get out. Like, you are literally a vessel for God to, like, bring His information through you.
Yeah.
And now you got to get it out.
Yeah. And I was working out, and I was doing, all these other things that help with my anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was almost avoiding it because I knew I wasn't taking time to sit down and have a chat.
And receive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's such a game changer when you know the pendulum's going to go back and forth, but when you can be in that negative vibration and still find the yin is in the yang and the yang is in the yin, and still find that joy within the darkness.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're really freaking feeling it, of whether it's anger, sadness, like frustration, and it feels so real, and it is real. But when you write down your feelings, express your feelings fully, don't try to suppress it. Like, really feel it, but at the same time, write down, whether it comes during it or after, what did I learn from that? How did that benefit me? Because the storms are always benefiting nature, whether it's starting a fire and it's creating renewal from a whole forest, or whether it's bringing a ton of rain and hell, but the trees really needed it.
Right.
It's happening for you, not to you.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that is once you reach that state, you kind of feel invincible.
Yep.
And not that hard times aren't tough, but you have this mindset of, what can I learn from this? And that was a game changer for my mental health when I understood, because everyone's like, oh, one day you'll understand why you went through depression and anxiety, and continually, like, to this day, I understand that now I can empathize with people that are dealing with mental health. And look at this, I dealt with that when I was like 20, in my mid-20s. I'm now 30, and look how much of a problem mental health is these days.
Yep.
And so I feel a calling, because I've experienced it. I've been in that situation. I've been on the pills. I've gotten, I've gotten out of that. I've figured out a way, and it's just, I feel like God's been preparing me, but yet it's like that jump rope. Like, I'm scared to jump in because, like, what do I know about that? What can I do? And that's the doubt that keeps in. And that, to me, is like, this opposer that's trying to keep me from stepping forward into my greatness,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, so talking about it. So we're all human, we all deal with these brains, and we all have to, go through it. And so I just sometimes have to come back to, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm unhappy. I need a change. Like, is it work? Is it, this and that? And I have to go through a checklist of, like, okay, everything's, like, good in my life, but, like, what little things do I need to tweak? Like, okay, maybe I should start going to bed a little bit earlier, and, like, maybe I should now, exercise in the morning, or maybe I need to go surf. I live right by the beach, and I never go surfing anymore, or, like, just these little things, and you keep track of what brings you happiness, and you have to it has to come from, like, an internal source, and then you can figure out, those healthy things from external sources that you can get it from as well.
Right. So just kind of always checking in with those pillars.
Yeah, exactly. And so kind of going back to, taking an inventory, and if I was perfect at it, I would do it on the daily. And when I was kind of discovering this whole process, it was before Instagram had stories. I would take Snapchat and I would record, I didn't care about what anyone else is doing, but I would record these little goals that I set for myself throughout the day. And then I would kind of look at it at the end of the day, and then I went to bed just feeling so accomplished. I'm like, look at what I did, and I didn't care what anyone else was doing, but like I reached my goals. And so that's like, wow, like if more people just started focusing more on themselves than they did other people, how much more productive would we be? How much, there's so many great things I think that would come from taking a step to take an inventory of your own life, because we're all up in each other's business all the time now, and we openly display what we're doing and this and that, and it's fine. I think there is a balance, and it's fun to stay connected and everything else, but we can't let it affect our minds.
Well, in thinking about it, you get like the deep hermetic principles of like as above, so below, as above. God literally took the time to create this universe.
Yeah.
He created it. He had a goal. He was getting in his, like feminine energy of like visualizing and playing with it, and sometimes it didn't work out how he wanted, so you kind of erase it and you just like try again, and like that's what he did.
Yeah.
That's what we do, because as above, so below as above.
Yeah.
We are supposed to be doing the same thing.
Right.
So we're not supposed to just be sitting around like freaking zombies.
Yeah.
That's not of God. Of God is having a goal, getting clear of it, having faith all the time, and do it.
Yeah. Go to it. Because I really believe that we existed in spirit form before this life, and we had a mission. We came down here, and there's a little bit of a memory block, but once you start tapping in, you begin to recognize these little things, and you start to, you'll find what resonates with you and your soul and what you're passionate about. And sometimes it's not always meaning what you should turn into a business. I've learned that too. It's just something like, no, this is something you're passionate about, you can share with the world, but it's not going to make you income necessarily like right now. Like with this concept of Smile, I wanted to create an app, I wanted to do all these things with it, but God's just like, let it be. This is something maybe you can create. But once I started aligning, once I like found this niche of mine, I was like, I am born to do this. Like it's just you can feel it. And sometimes it's these processes to kind of tap into that to figure out what it is. And I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes it's like these new ideas. I'm like, oh well, how do I turn this into a business? And it's like, it's a concept. Like let it be a concept, and just let it out there, and kind of let this be just just good things that you're putting out into the world. And so I think it's awesome, because for me, I'm like, okay, if kind of the same pattern, if God created us and this universe and everything else, and our goal is to, so like my goal and my belief is to live my life here, do as much and as good as I can to kind of make it back to live in heaven with him again. And so if I'm going to become like God and become a goddess myself one day, what am I doing right now on earth to kind of like prepare for that in certain ways? And so I need to mimic what he did, right? And live in his ways. And one thing that I loved, because growing up religious, I had, I knew about the commandments, I knew, all these different things, and kind of had, these rules. But then once I tapped into like really understanding more about kind of like just more of the principle behind things and just living a good life, and it's not about letter of the law so much as it is, these are, guidance system to like lead you in a good path for happiness. There was a teacher that stated that another word for like commandments is like the ways of God. Yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, because if that's our goal, so if we're in, that is my belief system, to become like God, to live with him again. If I am his daughter, can grow up to be be like my Heavenly Mother, then I can follow these ways in this path. And so whether you believe in this or not, like, find that end goal, find who did it first, and have them as your mentor. Because if you're living these certain steps, like, this is the guaranteed way, the path to get there. And it was kind of like, okay, if I'm modeling my ways after God's ways, or his, commandments to love other people, and, honor thy parents, these different things that are our ways of life, pattern my ways after his ways, our ways of life, our ways of thinking, our ways of anything that will amount to kind of just like anything, like it is like the way. And it's interesting because, like I said, if you believe in God or not, or the laws of the universe more than anything else, and you stick to these patterns, you just it will flow so much better, and it will be easier to stay in that vortex rather than questioning yourself all the time. You'll learn what feels good and what doesn't, and it's just this process as humans, because we've got this carnal brain of ours that wants to it's set for survival mode, and we have to train it to really become a kind of combine that spiritual and that human brain together into being able to kind of control over these earthly temptations that we have, whether that's to look at our phone these days, or food, I don't know, addictions, like you name it, like to really take control over our like carnal brain and our carnal body. We just gotta stop, tap in, and just take time to think. I think that's really what it comes down to.
I think it's crazy how you can just get to the core root of the word. Like, commandment means ways of God.
Yeah.
That sounds way more appealing, to be honest.
Yeah, right?
And then I did a podcast 2 episodes ago, maybe 1 episode ago, with Eric Mutzos.
Yes.
And he was saying how repentance means to turn to God.
Simple as that.
Okay, honestly, I almost rather say to turn to God rather than repentance, because there's almost a bad stigma with it.
Yes.
It seems so like a turn off to people.
100%.
But really, if you just get to the root origin of it, commandments, ways of God.
Yeah.
Ways of God means clarity.
Yeah.
Ways of Satan is confusion.
100%.
So if you're just aware of that and you live by these like laws and ways of God, it's there not to like tell you what to do. It's there as a, like what Eric Mutzos says.
Yeah.
It's a blueprint
100%
for your life, so you can execute your goals and live to your purpose, which brings true fulfillment and love and joy.
Yeah. That episode was so inspiring. Like, shout out to him for everything that he just threw on the table. Like, I was impressed. He just like laying down scripture, all these things, and it's like, yes, yes, yes. And I think there's been a stigma, especially, around the Mormon culture and our religion for a long time. But it was like, I had to figure out for myself that, I was in it since birth and this and that. But once I started understanding these things on a deeper level, it wasn't about what I could or couldn't do. It was what I could become. Like, it was so much happiness that was brought into my life. I couldn't deny that this was the way I was getting to that happiness.
Yep. And there's so many stigmas that turn people off within the Mormon religion, like the newest updated Christian way.
Yeah.
Is what I want to say. I don't even want to say Mormon, because even that turns me off.
Right.
The word repentance turns me off. The commandments turn me off. To bring new words of truth that this religion is teaching feels so good for me, because to me it is so evolved.
Yeah. And
when you really do get to like the deeper truths of it, it's so magical and freaking powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And God wants a powerful people. He really does. There's so much he wants to give us. I think there's still so much more out there that we're not ready to receive yet, because we're just not on that playing field yet. And I really think, and it's because our religion is centered around Christ, and they've asked us to stop, calling ourselves Mormons, because it was a nickname, and they want the center to go to Christ and not to anyone else.
And the fact that they are slowly updating, like the fact that they're like, don't call yourself a Mormon, that feels good for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, we should.
Yeah.
It's not even about the devil's in the details. It's about go to Christ, and he will freaking change your life. Before Christ, I didn't want to I didn't care about marriage. I didn't care about family. Like, my priorities were not, they were skewed, and I was confused, and I was running around in circles going down all these rabbit holes. And then literally as soon as I came to Christ, not necessarily religion, but Jesus Christ, everything shifted. Like, everything was like clear cut, like that.
Yeah. And that's how it is. And once, I'm actually like getting emotional, and once you surrender to that, there's just like, with all the chaos that's happening in this world, and like we were talking about, it is getting pretty black and white. Like, there is good and there is bad, and there's, you know, there's always been kind of this gray area, but
it's going away. It's black or white.
Right. And it's kind of like, you know, I hate to say like choose a side, but like really figure out what you want. And I've never been one to press, you know, religion onto anyone, and everyone makes their own choices, and it's their, you know, in their own timing. But the love that I feel from trusting Jesus Christ and understanding, you know, his teachings, and that has brought me so much peace in such a chaotic world. And even, you know, my happy place was in our temples. There's so many like even cool things that I've, you know, just got to experience, you know, inside what, you know, we call the house of the Lord. And there's just craving God, like homesick for heaven. Like I there's like these times, but it's like I get that peace, and I get that like with Wherrell to keep moving on from like all of these teachings and these believings and this connection that I have when I felt so alone. And prayer was like the only thing I had to hold on to. I didn't feel like friends or family. There was nobody that I could go to. Those, you know, those moments, I could feel God putting his hand on my shoulder and just like taking it into account. And so since I like recently started watching the TV show The Chosen, which another plug, because absolutely amazing show. And whether you're religious or not, if you like a good show, this is cool to get into. Like, no matter what religion you are, you know, Christ was a person that did live on earth, but they have done such a good job. And like every episode, I like come out like crying, and it just hits me because I'm such a visual person. Reading scripture sometimes just doesn't do it for me. Like, I don't understand, but I've been able to connect with and see, like, this actor does an amazing job of, like I was telling you, like, you can just see it in his eyes when he's just like looking at people and speaking to people, and these miracles that he performed, and the backstory to the, you know, the amount of just like chaos and oppression that, you know, these Jews were under, you know, Roman law and different things, and they were praying the whole. This is what kind of hit me. They were praying, and they had all their religious, you know, the law of Moses was more about like very like letter of the law. And so when Jesus came, you know, and started performing miracles and doing different things, he was a rebel of his day. And so that it was hard for these Jews to see that he was who he was, because it wasn't who they expected. And I think that's such a cool point, because these answers to our questions in our lives will come in ways that we never expect, or are different from what we picture in our heads. And so many times in my life, it's been the same. It's come through a hardship. It's come through this stranger, has come through something else. But little behold, you've got, you know, and for these people, the Messiah, the people they've been praying for their entire life, is right in front of them, and they're still like questioning.
Okay. I like love how, because sometimes I feel like religion can make people have like a stick in their butt.
Yeah.
But like, I love getting and reminding myself of the core. You said Jesus was the rebel of the rebellion of his day.
Oh yeah.
And that's how I feel.
Such a rebel. Mm-hmm.
And that's how he was. He was a bohemian. He was a traveler. He was doing his own thing, and he was just sticking up for God's ways.
Yeah.
That's all he was doing.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was a rebellion, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
That's how I see him. Like, when I pray, like, Jesus is my homie.
Yeah.
And he's freaking funny.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like growing up in the Mormon culture and like these old ways where it's stuffy.
Yeah.
It's like Jesus is not stuffy. Jesus is like almost wearing tie-dye and like, screw it, judge me, but I don't judge you, dude.
Right. Right.
And I love that. I think that's such a good reminder, because especially people in Utah, like, the man is not perfect and man is a part of this religion, but to remember just the core of like, Jesus is a rebellion. He has a sense of humor and he's just teaching love.
Yeah, you gotta get into the show. You're gonna be so into it, and I think that's so cool. And I truly, like, the president and prophet of our church right now has made these small little adjustments. And, you know, during COVID, like, a year before COVID, we instilled this new, like, I guess, what's the word? I'm forgetting, but just this new way of thinking about church as, like, a home-centered, church-supported, like, system of church. Like, you don't go to church to, you know, be fed. Like, you need to understand how to receive all this, like, and teach within the homes. And so that was such an emphasis 2018, 19, and look what happened 2020. We all got shoved to have church in our homes, and really taught us, and like Jake and I, we started having boat church, like, while we were dating, like, because we couldn't go to church, and Jake was living on his sailboat at the time, and he's like, Christ had a boat, didn't he? I'm like, probably, but we just, like, sat there and to still have, like, kind of an intimate experience of, like, setting that time aside to realize, look, we're not going into these church buildings anymore, but that doesn't mean we can't have church right here in a boat, in our home, in our lives. And so I think it's Christ is he was teaching these people, you'll see in the show, that it's, you know, he was talking to the woman at the well, and she had made some mistakes, and she had a horrible reputation, and this is the way they portrayed it, you know, in the show, and her reputation was ruined. She kind of was with several different husbands and this and that, and other women didn't want to be seen with her, so she had to go to the well during the middle of the day where it was, like, hot, and so, you know, Jesus winds up being there at the same time, and it was the first time he had introduced himself, like, vocally out loud to someone, that he was the Messiah. Like, usually he kind of, like, let people figure it out, you know, through these episodes, and it was, like, the first time, because it wasn't his time to kind of start his ministry yet, but the mindset was so letter of the law that when he started saying, like, look, church isn't about, you know, she's like, I can't go to the synagogues, I can't worship, you know, and this and that. He's like, pretty soon, like, my kingdom that I'm establishing, it's not about going to the synagogues. It's, like, what's in your heart and what's in your mind.
And are you carrying that around all the time?
Exactly. And she was like, in the heart, in the mind, and she wound up, like, leaving, and just the way they portrayed it, like I said, I'm just, like, so in love with this, because I'm like, these are real stories. So I go back in the Bible, I'm like, oh, you know, like, some of it, you know, they had to kind of fill in the gaps because there's so much, but they gave all the different apostles very strong personalities, and even Christ is so relatable in a way to where you just connect, and then I'm like, wait, this guy was a real being. This is who the guy that I, like, my whole foundation of my life has been built around. And so it's just been kind of cool to see that connection. But it's not about the culture. Like I said, he had to push through the culture that came out of the law that he established in the Old Testament, right? Mm-hmm. And so he was this rebel to come and say, no, this is the new way. So I feel like that's where we're going. And
I love that you said that and reminded me of that, because there's times where, like, a little devil on my shoulder is making me feel so guilty to not wanting to go to church. But it's like, what is God wanting us to do is to always, like, be of God all the time.
Yeah.
You don't just go to church and then you're good for going to church and then you're a freaking a-hole outside of it.
Right, exactly.
They're missing the point. The point is to constantly embody Christ.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Outside of the synagogues.
Exactly. And so, you know, when we're baptized, and it's funny because it's just like, I kind of had to think backwards, and it's like, that's what we've promised to do, is kind of like take his name upon us to do the things that he would do, because he's not here to minister anymore. Like, yeah, he's resurrected and different things, but he's not here to do the things and teach these principles of happiness.
You're there to do it.
Exactly.
You're there to do it.
You are the vessel for that. And
because we're becoming like Christ.
Right.
A high vibration.
Right.
Of being aware.
Yes. So, of course, like, the adversary wants to, he wants to distract us. He wants to keep us off from understanding who we really are, because once we do, he loses his power, and we're just like, get out of my way. I'm here to do good, and I'm here to uplift, and I'm here to do some work.
And that swings us into a 180 of, the devil wants us to be in confusion and not look within and not look deeper and not see our inner Christ and our inner God and our potential and get clear on our goals. But to step back, get in that yin and remember who you are and what you want, and remember and know what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And once you know that, then make action on that.
Yeah, such a key word. I said remember. Remember is like Lion King, remember who you are, Simba.
You are my son.
And it's so true. And remembering that, and it's like my belief is that I was a person as a spirit with my mission before I came here, and we kind of had this blockage of memory of any of that. And so as remembering that, that's when I become more and more aligned with my purpose, and everything else is like this, you catch these little glimpses of, and it's more so like these just like feel good feelings of like, oh wow, but it takes a while to tap in, and I'm not gonna lie, until I sat down and opened up this journal, I was feeling numb. I was feeling so lost, but yet I have all this information, but I got distracted, which it's
We have all the answers within us. But are we giving ourselves the time to tap into those answers? Maybe a lot of us really are afraid of that, of our power.
Yeah.
But jump in the jump rope sequence thing.
Right.
Just do it, and you'll get used to it and comfortable with it, and then it's your norm of knowing you're a powerful, conscious creator.
Yeah.
Hello. That's why we're on this planet.
I know. Sounds so simple. There's so much to it, but it really does. It starts with just believing in it and having a desire to attract that into your life and start cutting ties with those cords that are, you're stuck to your phone, you're stuck to your old ways, and once you start snipping at those, then
free Pinocchio.
Yeah.
One cord at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys are wanting to consume something, watch The Chosen, which I haven't watched yet, all in due time. But I've been hearing from multiple people it's bomb. I've been following them on Instagram. And I've been saying on this the last 4 podcasts, but watch Avatar The Last Airbender. I don't care your age. I don't care your gender. Yeah, it's anime, and I'm not an anime freak. But it's such a show with deep truths and meanings. It's literally life for me. I'm obsessed with Avatar The Last Airbender. Be like Aang. I love Aang. You are an avatar. Wait, okay. I have to pee, but can you, real quick?
Yes.
I've really been wanting you to expand on the Chinese elements and the fire.
Yes.
Because I'm really into Taoism and Eastern way of thought.
Yes.
And so to collaborate that with Jesus Christ is so powerful to me.
I just get chills, right? So, so in traditional Chinese medicine, there are 5 elements. So you have fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And so all of these elements interchange with each other, and physically in nature, one feeds the other. Fire, feeds into one thing, which helps another thing, and
it's feeding the earth and it's feeding the air.
Yeah.
And then the air is feeding the fire as well, and then the earth it's creating a vapor, so water into the earth, and then the metal, and then the trees.
So it's this cycle of this creation cycle.
Yeah.
This creation and control cycle. So it's been a while because I learned all about it in massage school. I was learning acupressure and a lot of traditional Chinese medicine. And so I'm blanking on it right now. But the fire element. So when things are out of balance, the goal is to stimulate the fire element, because that's what gets the ball rolling with everything else. So when you have a fire, it feeds the earth, which lays a good foundation for the metals of the earth, which does this to water, and then waters the trees and creates wood, and then wood gets burned, and then
and the wood creates air, which fuels the fire.
Yeah.
It's all helping each other. It's all cohesive.
Yeah. So within each element, you have different seasons, different sounds, tastes, smells, feels, all everything. And so the fire element is associated with the emotion of joy, which I think is super cool. And so Christ has been referred to a lot as like, you know, coming in a pillar of fire and kind of like the light of the world and everything else. And so like light versus darkness. And so when like going back to like when I found the scripture being like spiritually minded, once I really understood that it has to start with that spiritual mindset, that joy, that fire element, and everything else will fall into place. Like that is the fuel. That's where you start, because it can get really confusing at times to like, okay, I feel so like I need to change, I need to do something. Where do I start? And it starts with fire. Fuel the fire, stoke your fire, you know, and get that going. And then everything else will present itself, and it will work out, because it's science, it's nature, it's the laws of the universe, laws of God, and it just works.
I always feel the spirit the most strong when I'm around a fire.
Yeah, you are fire.
We're fire.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
We're fire elements. Yeah. I love that. I'm really intrigued with that, because you always mention that, and my brain really likes to get to the elementals. Like,
I'll have to find my books. I'll send you screenshots of some of these things. You're just gonna love it. Is there anything else specifically that you wanted to like know about within that?
Like I would love to read your books, because I want to get deeper into that. Mm-hmm. It's a rabbit hole I'd like to go down. My inner Japanese likes to know that stuff. I love nature. I think nature is like pure chi, and it's where God really resides.
Yeah.
Because it's yin.
Right.
Unless you have fire, that's super yang. Fire! Anyways, I encourage you guys, if you don't know the universal laws, look up the 7 universal laws, Google them, study them, research them, because it really is uniting spirituality and science and integrating them, and you'll see that it's the same coin, and you kind of understand God's mind by understanding these principles.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's a great foundation for me as a spiritualist, and for you, because I love how we can get deep on that.
Yeah.
Because we're deeply spiritual, and a lot of people can be religious and not spiritual, and that's where it's freaky.
Yeah.
That's where it's just like mindless action, but when you're intentional,
right? Because
you understand the spiritual depth, that's when the magic really plays out.
Absolutely.
And you're aware of the magic. Anyways, LALA.
Wow.
Should I call you Chelsea? You're always just LALA to me.
I love it. Whatever you want to call me, I'll answer to it. LALA's fitting. It's really fitting.
It really is fitting. So tell everyone where you're at. I feel like you're gonna get a lot of people, because you open up so well about your story, and it's so relatable. So just give out any information that you want where people can find you.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's like this jump rope of jumping back into getting this kind of smile thing going. So my intention is to kind of create a step-by-step program, a notebook to help you kind of like step into this, because for me, I'm like, write it out for me, like give me something to do and I'll do it, instead of just like talking about it. So that's my project I'm working on. I've been working on it for a while, but really kind of figured out what it was. So I'm mostly present on Instagram, _ Chelseaehlen. Still haven't changed it since I got married. So it's, still _ Chelseaehlen. And then I have a link tree in my bio that can take you to, I have my own podcast, and a website on there that kind of tells a little bit more of my story. And so I go dive into my a little more details with Joe on my first episode. Kind of helps me tell my story and kind of how more of this came about. And then I'm just kind of looking to kind of get this concept of smile out there, and it's just as simple. Everyone can connect with this concept of wanting to be happy, especially in kind of a chaotic world we live in right now. And so I post things on occasion. I'm getting back into it, and so stay tuned for some things I'm going to be releasing. And thank you so much.
So reach out to us. I think we're all craving community, and I think we're sick of this isolation, and that's where a lot of the loneliness is stemming from. We all are family, we're all one, we're all brothers and sisters. So reach out to us. Thank you so much.
Please do.
For tuning in. This episode is so juicy, LALA. I'm freaking stoked. Give us feedback.
Please do.
And we love you. God bless.